Okay, well, I think we can get started. Welcome everyone to this webinar. So nowadays, AI is everywhere. You see it in the newspapers, the potentials of AI, the possible use cases, maybe also the threats of AI. But today we would like to talk about AI from a different perspective, which actually is how to make AI part of the DNA of your company. We will do that by combining the views of two people. So the first one is myself. I'm Shoera Sels. I work as a solution lead at Radix, and I have been involved with a lot of different clients in their AI journey. Examples are Flanders Investment and Trade, Vlaio, but for example, look, also right now, the Port of Antwerp, Bruges. And I will do this together with Joachim De Rouck, who can actually give his insights from within a company perspective. So maybe Joachim, you can shortly introduce yourself.
Hello, good morning. My name is Joachim De Rouck. I am business partner data and data science at Brussels Airport. My main role here is to make our company data-driven, also through AI, and influencing actually our business strategy through data, and as such, making our business more data-driven.
Okay, great. Before diving into the program of this session, I would first like to discuss some practicalities. So during the session, you can ask questions. There is actually a dedicated questions tab. So not in the chat, but the questions tab where you can put some questions, people can vote, and then in the end of the webinar, we will highlight some of these questions to discuss them. There will also be some polls, so feel free to click what's applicable for you in the polls, and then that way we can also get to know each other a little bit. Okay, so then let's get started. I first have to go. Yeah. So the agenda for today, the biggest part of this webinar will be the end part, which will be a discussion between Joachim and myself. We identified 5 key factors that we have seen ourselves that are actually very important to have success in having AI in your organization. But first, I will also give some introduction on first, how do you actually reap benefits from AI within your organization, and then also the different AI maturity levels of an organization, because this can also highly impact the challenges that you are seeing at a certain point in time. So first of all, how to reap benefits with AI, or to say it shorter, why AI? Because why would you do the efforts in having AI as the DNA in your company if it's not clear why you would use AI? So I have 4 examples of how AI can bring value in an organization, but actually the possibilities are endless. So it will be maybe a little bit vague, but it really changes from context to context what you can actually do. So a first example is customer satisfaction and engagement, but in my opinion, this should also be employee satisfaction and engagement. So it's really making sure that the interaction with a certain tool is as comfortable as possible. An example that we have done in the past here is, for example, for the Flanders Investment and Trade, they have to answer a lot of questions about investments and things like that. And these questions, they might actually, from time to time, be pretty difficult. So they have to do some research while answering a certain question. And so we help them in looking at the previous questions that have been answered and already proposing questions that they can reuse then in the process of answering a new incoming question. I actually also think that ChatGPT, for example, or GPT-4 in general, is something that would be very interesting to have on top of this, where you can actually just have a conversation with this knowledge base, for example. Then the next one is efficiency and productivity. So there are many tasks that, for example, can be automated, tasks that are repetitive, that you have to do all the time, that maybe are also not that nice to do. One example that I have here is a project that we did for GSK, which was about the goal is to count the bacterial colonies, and this is necessary in the development of, for example, vaccines. And as you can probably understand, this is a very repetitive task, which is also not the most interesting part of the job. And now with AI, we help them to automate this so that they can actually focus on doing the evaluation and seeing what to do next instead of doing this counting. A next example is then data-driven decision-making. So based on the insights that AI can give you in your data, you can make better decisions. I think this is something that, for example, at Brussels Airport Company is something that is very valuable, but maybe Joachim can explain that later in this session. But another example where this is applicable is, for example, for a project that we did for Agoro. So the goal is they want to give carbon credits to farmers that actually farm in a more sustainable way. So how can they farm in a more sustainable way? It's by certain way of tillages, cover crops, or also making sure that the nitrogen in the soil is not is managed in the proper way. And so certain farmers, they can ask for these credits, but of course, Agoro also needs to check if they actually did this tillage management that they claim to do, or certain cover crops, to actually give them the credits. And based on satellite images, they can actually automatically get insights of which tillage management of which cover crops certain farmers did, to then decide if they actually can receive these credits or not. And a last example is increased revenue. Of course, these three others, hopefully they will also increase your revenue, but you can also directly increase your revenue by, for example, having predictive pricing, which is something that typically an Uber, for example, does, or by giving very personalized recommendations on a shopping page, for example, so that people buy more. So this is a fourth example. So as I said, pretty general, but I do think that at least one of these can be applicable to most organizations. And actually, as I already said, the opportunities are endless. So you can use AI in your business processes, in your operations, maybe in your products. And we actually believe that the real value comes when this is really done on a bigger scale. So if you only have one small task that is being automated by AI, or where you are supported by AI, it can have some value, but it's really when you start to do it across your organization that you can really feel the benefit. But you can already start to feel, it's something that impacts your processes. It's something that impacts other parts of your company as well, which also makes the challenges that you might be seeing a little bit more complex than when you are only doing it for a small solution. So that's actually what we would like to discuss with you today in this webinar. I think now it's already time for the first poll. So the question is, which one of these do you actually think as relevant for your organization? So if you go to the poll section, you can answer it there. We will maybe wait a couple of seconds so that people can vote. So I see the most part is data-driven decision-making, and not a lot of customer satisfaction and engagement. So that's something that we can still improve on in the future. Okay, to continue. So in this next part, I will discuss a little bit the different AI maturity levels that we have seen by working together with many different companies. Why is this relevant to you? Because the different stages where you might be at it might pose different challenges and maybe also different things that you should focus on. So by making sure that you're not doing step 10 first and ignoring 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it might be good to also think for yourself, where am I? Does this correspond with the challenges that I have? And yeah, I think the key factors that we have identified, some of them become more important at a certain maturity level. So which are the 5 maturity levels? So the first one is AI. That's a buzzword to me. I actually think that this one was very important maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. A lot of companies were like, yeah, something is happening with AI, but we are not sure yet what. Now I think most people are starting to be aware, but still it's a stage that you can be in. So what's happening in this level? It's mainly inspiring C-level management, maybe also other levels of management, but mainly thinking about, are there possibilities within the work that I'm doing? Can it bring value? And so it's mainly focusing on the potential, but also managing the expectations, because AI, it can bring a lot of value, but you do have to understand that there are some steps that you will have to take. You will have to put some effort in, so it will not just all happen automatically. So that's the first level. The second level is, okay, let's give it a try. So that's when you are actually convinced that maybe there are some processes or some things that can be helped by AI. And in this stage, the main idea is to show the value of AI. This doesn't mean that it will all be like the biggest solution that will integrate all different data sources and will be shown in different dashboards. That's maybe one step too far. But what we would like to do in this stage is focus on some quick proof of concepts. Use the data that you have available, because you might see that you will have to work together with the data team to make sure that the right data is available at the right time for certain AI solutions. But maybe this is not what you would like to do in this stage. Let's just focus on the data that we have. Let's see if we can have some value. Let's discuss this with some end users to see if they also see the value, and not make it too big too soon. Then the third one is AI is creating value for us. So here the first solutions are actually being used on the field. You should start with thinking about some data resources, have maybe an AI roadmap where you can put some business needs that might be relevant for AI, and voila. Then the fourth one is we actually need AI, so we are using it, and we are also expecting it to work as we would expect. So in this stage, a standardized data science way of working is important. So there has to be a clear data science team. There has to be a clear organization of who is going to do what, how use cases come in, how they are being prioritized, how they are being handled. So that's the fourth stage. And then in this fifth stage, it's like the utopia of the AI maturity. AI is part of the strategy and is really in the DNA of the organization. You build and run high quality AI products. It's not just one solution, but often a lot of solutions. And there is a standardized process from ID to industrialized products. Voila, so these are the 5 levels of AI maturity. And again, let's have a poll to see at which maturity level you see yourself right now. Okay. So I see most people are either giving it a try, or where it's starting to create value, but it's not really part of the strategy. Although the fifth one is also increasing in numbers, but the AI, that's a buzzword to me. As we can see, it's lower in the ranks. So I think most companies are already doing some things, but yeah, okay. Then we can get into the third part, of this webinar. So now is the discussion part where we will go into some key factors that we identified and where we will have a discussion of how we see these things and how we have experienced them. The first one is focus on bringing value. There is a lot of hype around AI, a lot of cool things that you can do with it. And I think for a lot of companies, maybe definitely if you're in this second stage where you want to see what's possible, you want to inspire people, you might be looking at the more cooler things that to make people engaged and make sure that they are want to collaborate with you. But actually I think that this is mainly important in the beginning stage, and that after that focus on bringing value is actually also very important. But I'm very interested to hear what Joachim has to say about this. So maybe we can go into the first question, maybe by looking how AI currently brings value for Brussels Airport Company.
Well, I think that AI brings value because we focus on value. You say we can do AI because it's cool. It is indeed cool, but if you only do the cool stuff, you won't really get your business behind your roadmap, because they will say, okay, yeah, this is cool, it is nice, but what can I do with it? And that's a question that we often see. What can we do with it? How can we use it? Why should we use it? And how does AI bring value for Brussels Airport Company? It's very simple. We actually have integrated into our operations our own tool sets based around data. So we have our Heli and we have our Sybil. Heli is more around real-time monitoring of our operations, and then we have our Sybil, who is dedicated actually to forecasting, and that's where AI really brings value to our company, because our operations is actually using those forecasting tools to better manage their resources. And it could be that it's to do with screening, for example, so how many agents should we use, but it could also be that it's a technical resource as to, okay, how are we going to put our check-in desks so that we don't overload our bag systems, for example. So it really brings value because you're helping your business manage their business, their processes, their resources in a more efficient way, which is very difficult because beforehand they were using gut feeling, and as we all know, the world is getting more and more complex. So just by saying, oh yeah, but last year this time we think we had an increase in 50% in number of passengers, so we think we might have an increase again in 50%. Well, that doesn't work anymore. Behavior, everything is being so complex that you really need those forecasting systems to get that input towards your business so that they can make a data-driven decision on what they should do.
Okay, that's clear. And then how has the focus on the value brought you to where you are today, or how do you actually see this focus on value?
Well, I mean, everything we do about data is value focused. I mean, it's something that we start with the 5 times why. It is very important to us. Of course, saying what the value is in the beginning is not always easy. It is also a maturity level in itself that you need to get to with your business, because okay, business can say we need this, but okay, but does it? It's not because business says that they need it that it really brings value. So having people who will challenge those value statements is crucial to your entire process. And why has a focus on value brought us where we are today? Because it made sure that our business sees the value of what we're doing, because they can use it. They use it to make their day-to-day jobs better, easier. They can reduce their cost, or they can improve the satisfaction of our customers, for example. So it's, for me, again, we can do cool things to inspire, but I think inspiring is mainly within the discussion and looking at the possibilities on what AI can do and showing that. While if you're really starting to implement, it should always have a focus on, okay, if this is successful, how are we going to implement this into the company? Who is going to use it? How are they going to use it? Why will this make their lives easier? Why will this bring value to our company?
Yeah, so it's bigger than only looking at the solution itself, but it's also how are we going to do it in a sustainable way. I also think that the other key factors that we identified actually bring into this one. Huh?
Yeah, and that is why we have a team dedicated to only looking at that. So we have a team dedicated to looking at, okay, what's your business strategy? How are we going to help you with your business strategy based on data? But how are we going to influence your business strategy as well? Because it is crucial. And thinking about the solution will most of the time limit the way that business is thinking. It's a challenge in itself in making sure that business doesn't think in solution, but focuses on the value, focuses on the why. But it is crucial not to limit yourself from the beginning and try to think as broad as possible.
Okay, then the third question within this factor. So how do you identify new projects and how are they prioritized then?
Well, easy. Everything can be easy or difficult, but identifying new projects, it's indeed the team of data product owners who really go towards the business and who gets to know their business, who builds a relationship with their business and understands what are the pain points of those businesses, what is keeping. What is their day-to-day, how can we improve understanding their processes. So it's really by working together on a day-to-day basis with that business, sitting together with them. I always say to my team as well, I don't want to see you sitting at your own desk. I want to see you sitting with the business day in, day out. For me, if you're doing your job well, I don't see you. And I think that's important. It should really be a relation between your data team and your business. You can call them account managers, maybe. I don't know, but data is a very large and a very difficult change process. So building that relationship to identify new projects to bring that value is important. How are they prioritized? Very easy. You actually go and look at your value, and that compared to how much time would you actually need to spend on it. That gives you the value per day that you need to spend on it, and that's actually how it's prioritized.
Okay.
Purely based on value per day that you need to invest in it.
Okay, and then whichever ones come highest is then implemented.
Yep.
Okay, nice. Actually, what you were already saying, it brings us to the second key factor in a smooth way, which is to encourage collaborative culture. So indeed, it's not only just the data science silo that has to think about what are we going to do, how are we going to do it. I think this is the most value. You actually get it by working together with the different teams. You already mentioned operations, but also, for example, the data engineering team to make sure that the data is available, or maybe some kind of DevOps team that makes sure that all the infrastructure is there to host these models, which might be a little bit more complex. Really makes that this collaborative culture is really important. How do you see this at Brussels Airport Company? Which stakeholders do you see, and how do these work together?
I think it's for me, it's the thing that really encourages me most about data. It's that the entire company is your stakeholder. I mean, you're doing this for the entire business, so the entire business is your stakeholder, and you need to work together as well with your ICT stakeholders, your ICT partners. So it's an entire ecosystem. So if you're saying, okay, which are our main stakeholders? Well, everyone, in all honesty. I don't think that there is one department that we can really say, okay, look, we can't do anything for you. So for me, everyone is a stakeholder. How do these work together in close collaboration? For me, the time of everybody working in their silo, not thinking about each other and just throwing things over the wall, it's gone. It's really focused on working together as a team, also with business. So for me, it's not only between with ICT, for example, it's also with businesses. It's important for me as well that when we do something for one business unit, that we can say or can see, okay, how can we reuse this for other ones? And that it's not a claim for one business unit. Oh yeah, but this is my solution. No one else can use it. No. How are you actually going to expand this? And of course, it leads us to an entire different discussion. But for me, reusability is also a key factor to increasing your value, because if you do something for one team and you can actually reuse it as it is or with a minimal effort towards another team, actually it expands your value dramatically.
Is this then something that you already try to do when you see an opportunity to look at how can we reuse
Every
parts
time.
of this? Or
every time. So every time that we get a demand, it is presented in what we call a plannings meeting, which is everybody who is included towards with data towards the business is within that meeting, and actually we challenge each other there. First of all, on the value. Okay, is this the right value? How did you calculate it? Why are we doing this? But secondly, it is also giving ideas to each other. Yeah, but if you're going to use this, I've already done this. How can we reuse it? Or if you're going to use that, I know that within my business, this also is a question. It's not a priority right now, but I know that within a year it will become a priority. So, okay, how can we make sure that if we do this right now, that we already prepare and put the basics right for the time that the other question will come? So that for me is very important. It's not the purpose of making the process very difficult and heavy, but it is the purpose of really increasing that value before you start doing anything.
okay, and how do you actually make sure that operations is involved? For example, do they understand what AI is, what's possible with AI? Do they also get training in that, or is it mainly by putting them
They
together that
they
they can?
don't get training. They don't get training. But for me, it is a key capability of somebody who goes to business and talks data, that they can actually talk both towards technical people, so in a more technical language, but especially in a business language. You can call it a Boomba language, whatever you want to call it, but you really need to be able to explain what you're able to do. You don't need to go into technical details. It doesn't matter for business. For business, it matters how much is it going to cost me? Why is this going to help me? How can I use it? And that's important. It's always within the mindset of your business.
Okay, makes sense. Then this actually brings us again to the third point. So the superpower your people with AI. What this means for me is you want your AI tools to actually help the people that are using it. But it also means the other way around, that you also have to identify it before you start actually implementing who is going to use it, in which process is it going to be a part of, because I have seen it very often that people have an idea, they start implementing on it, but they actually don't think about the end result. How are we going to use it? And this actually might impact certain decisions that you make in the design process already pretty much. How do you see this at Brussels Airport Company, and how do you ensure that there is, for example, end user engagement?
First of all, I agree with what you're saying. I think it's sometimes a misconception about the entire agile way of thinking and working. It's not because it's agile that you don't need to do some thinking before you start. Sometimes I have the perception that people start without thinking and then think, okay, along the way we will start thinking and it will be okay. I don't think that will. You really need to do a minimal of thinking before you start. That's for sure. And how do we ensure this? Well, it's very easy. Again, it's the team that goes towards the business that needs to. It's the basics. Say, ask your 5 times why. Ask why do you need this? How are you going to use this? Why is your current way of working not okay? What are your pain points? How is this going to solve? It's and it can be the other way around as well. If we have an idea that we need to convince them, and then you can convince them by showing, okay, you're working XYZ today. If you do ABC today, it would make sure that you spare, let's say, half a day a week, and you can actually do the things that you like. We see that a lot of people are dealing with data and working with data, but actually in Excel files and whatever things that they're not actually supposed to do, that they're not trained for, and that they don't like to do, but that they need to do to be able to do their daily job. And if you can actually take away that stress by giving a forecast, these kind of things, it really makes it ensures that you really have your business on board. And then just validating, okay, how are you going to use this, which is a very important question, is a very basic one, but you really should ask it before you start.
And do you also involve them during the development to give feedback and try things out, or?
Absolutely. Not only during development, but also during the analysis phase, because what I'm talking about now, mainly challenging, that's for me the demand phase before you start any analysis, but also during the analysis phase, you involve them. And then, of course, along the way, and that's for me, then the added value of working in an agile way is that as soon as you have something, you go to business, you involve them, you ask them, you verify, okay, is this okay with you? What do you think? So that you can also change along the way. You don't need to change your entire scope. But you often see that people are not used to conceptual thinking, in a sense that they know in advance what they really want in detail. While if you can show them something, even if it's a pure draft, it will become very easy or very much easier for them to say, oh yeah, but that button should be there because I'm always clicking there and I need that data, so I'm looking there, so it should be better there. These small things, but it can really make sure that your end user engagement increases dramatically.
Yeah, indeed. I also experience it in the same way, and it's also something that we really try to focus on every time that the end user, or at least someone who is also very interested in it, is on board to really give feedback all the time. And sometimes the solution might become totally different than maybe in the beginning was anticipated, but because indeed this conceptual thinking, it might be difficult for some people in the beginning. Do you then see any challenges in AI adoption? And do you maybe have an example where this went well?
Well, challenges, I mean, it's always difficult when you need to say to people, or when you're going to say to people, look, we're going to change the way that you're working. It's always a difficulty, and especially with AI, which is a black box for most people, or for a lot of people. I mean, if you see the reactions on the internet on certain things, I think it says everything. I know Radix, for example, did something about the Masked Singer. If you see the reactions there, I think it speaks it says everything. So I think you need to be very careful and place yourself in the shoes of your business, and convince them that it's not purely AI that we're using, but that we're using a solution, that we're building a solution, not because it's AI, not because it's data science, not because it's data, but because it will help them. And there it is important to, as we said before, that you take them by hand in the entire journey, because then you can actually show them what the added value is. You can show them, look, this is correct. They might not always be understanding what the system does or why it reacts in this way, but as long as they can test it and they say, okay, yes, but this is indeed better than our previous one, they will adopt to it. What we usually do is we do a co-run where we have the old system running together in parallel with the new system for 3 or 6 months, and then they can actually see and they can adopt quite easily or in time, while still being able to use their old system. So that fallback is very important for them. And then where did it go well? Well, as I said before, we are using forecasting in our operations. Our operations is a very important part of our company, as you can understand. So having made sure that our business is really using our forecasting models in their operations, I think that is really it really shows that we have been successful in that.
And this phase that you were describing, 3 to 6 months, where they can use both systems at the same time, do you involve everyone then, or do you start with some pilot users first to see how it goes, or how do you do that?
It's not only pilot users. So you have indeed your main users. Of course, you have the people who know their process, and of course you start with them, and then afterwards you do training sessions, etc. So it's always good to have a few people on board before you go and really spread it across an entire department. So I would always advise that, so that at least you have some supporters. I think coming in cold and saying, look, guys, this is what we're going to do for the entire group, that will probably be a less successful strategy.
Yeah, I can imagine indeed. Okay. Then the second to last, stay up to date. So this one is actually more technical than the other ones we have discussed up until now, because now it may look like we are not paying attention to the technical side at all, but it is, of course, still relevant to stay up to date with the AI landscape, what is possible, what is happening, because it might also change over time. I think, for example, Whisper, when Whisper was released, is a very good example of that. I think a lot of organizations try to use speech to text in their daily way of working, but it wasn't working very well. And then with the coming of Whisper, I think it was a good point to reevaluate if you wanted to continue with that or not. I also understood that for you, AI credibility within the company is something that's very important to you. Can you maybe explain why?
Well, it's you need to stay top of mind with your business. You need to make sure that whenever they think data, whenever they think AI, they think, ah, yeah, let's go to the data team. And how do you do that? You do that by showing that you really are on top of things, that you really are following market trends, that you really know what you're talking about. And that could be through articles, it could be through a web page, whatever you want to do. But it's important that you keep feeding your business. It will work both ways. So it will keep or will have two benefits. You will be kept top of mind, but also you will inspire them. So if you just give them cases from other industries, for example, they might also relate that to their own processes and say, but if we can do that, for example, within retail, maybe we can use this within our cargo facilities, for example. So for me, it is very important because you need to stay top of mind, and people really need to trust you and see you really as a partner, as a partner they want to use to implement their strategy.
Yeah. Okay. And is this important both internal and external to you, or is it mainly internal that you want to have this AI credibility?
AI credibility for me, it's purely internal. I think external always based on value. I think as a company, you really need to show value. I mean, I can't imagine that the passenger would be interested in Brussels Airport because we do AI. I can't imagine it. But if we can say, look, we can reduce your waiting time, so we want to make sure that your waiting time isn't about X minutes, I think that is more important for them rather than how we do it.
Yeah. So the impact and not the AI itself.
The service, the value rather than the solution, yes.
Okay, and then we have the last one, which is get the right people on board. I think a lot of the number of companies which are actually starting to use AI and are growing their AI, it's also growing. So the talent pool for the AI people that really know a lot about it, it's not so easy to find the right people. It might also be pretty challenging to know who you need, because there are actually a lot of different domains in AI. You can have like the NLP, natural language processing, computer vision. You need some AI translators that can indeed talk with the business. So it's a broad range of skills that you really need for your team. So I think it's something that you have to start thinking about early on to really make sure that in time you shape the right team. How do you make sure at Brussels Airport Company that you have the right people on board?
We don't, no. The thing is that for me, it's important to focus on the things that we are good at. For me, it's important to focus on the business, on the value, these kind of things, and build internal knowledge around that. For everything which is technical, it's very difficult from my point of view, to keep that one internally. Why? Because technology changes. You need to be able to find the right partners whenever you need them. So what we usually do there is actually go to external parties, especially also for our engineering, and just make sure that we get the right people on board so that we have the maximum flexibility there.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, I actually think that this was the last point of the 5 key factors that we wanted to share with you. There is also a poll again to see which one that you find the most challenging right now to focus on. So let's take some time to look at the votes, and then we can have some time for questions and maybe some other discussions. So, voilà. So I see most people are struggling with focusing on bringing the value. So this might maybe mean that you are not sure where the value might be within your organization with AI, or maybe it might be that it's difficult to engage other departments or other parts of the organization. Well, that's how I interpret it. And also get the right people on board is increasing now, I see. Okay, so then maybe we can go into the questions. I didn't look at them yet, so let me give a second to look at them. I think, so we have one, from Remco Freiling. I hope I am pronouncing your name right. So we have 6 votes. So let's start with that one. How is the recent emergence of large language models changing the approach to AI? How can you speed up the process in these times of exponential change? If you are too slow, you'll never catch up, is my feeling at the moment. Would you like to say something about that, Joachim? Or
well, how can you speed up the process? Well, it's all depending on budget, of course. And again, there, focus on value. It's not because it's a hot topic right now that it might be the right thing for your business. So again, for me, there it's focus on value. If you say, okay, yeah, but these things can really bring value, then indeed focus on it. But you will always need budget. So I think your constraint will always be, do you have enough budget to do this? I'm not sure if this answers your question.
Yeah, I also think that since it's blowing up, okay, sorry, I got a message. I was distracted, sorry. But I also think that indeed it is changing very fast and new possibilities are becoming available. But for me, this also links a little bit to this credibility. So you want to be aware of what's possible and maybe think about, okay, these changes are happening. Can they have an impact on my organization? But it doesn't mean, like Joachim said, that you immediately have to jump on the train. I think mainly stepping back and thinking, can this do something for me? Definitely following up on what's happening and experimenting, because I think, for example, the GPT-4, it's very new. I don't think a lot of organizations are already having a lot of value from it because, we need to start experimenting. How is it working? What are the possible use cases? So I do also think that we still have a long way to go there to actually create value from them. There are some challenges, there are some questions. So we'll have to see how it grows over time. But I definitely think it's important to stay up to date with what's happening and to question how it can influence your organization. Okay, so then there are 3 votes, so I'm just going to take the 4 votes. Well, that make my decision easy. How frequent are your model runs? Do they run weekly, daily, hourly? How do you measure the accuracy of your models and how frequently? I think this one is directed to you, Joachim.
Yes. So well, it depends on the model, but our main models are actually used or run based on events. So that means that as soon as we get some new data in, the models are rerun, which makes that you always have an accurate version. How do you measure accuracy? Well, very easy. As we forecast number of people, number of bags, these kind of things, and we have counters to do that, you can actually compare those. The day afterwards, you can always compare your actuals with your forecast and see how accurate are those. That could be your waiting times, that could be your number of people, these kind of things. So it's very easy for us on the things that we've done right now to measure the accuracy.
Okay. Let's see. So what tools are you using to build proof of concept, value apps, Streamlit? What is the typical E to E time for proof of concepts?
What tools? In all honesty, I am going to, or I can't answer that because I'm not the technical guy of the bunch. In all honesty, so I don't know. Maybe Shoera can help on that one afterwards. What's your typical end-to-end time? Well, we don't want a POC to last for several months. So usually it's a few weeks to maybe 2-3 months maximum. But it also depends on the size and the scope. And it doesn't mean, for example, that because we agree that the POC should last for 3 months, that we can't say after 2-3 weeks, okay, yeah, but let's pull the plug because it won't work. So even if it is for an extended period of time that we will do the POC, we still have periods in time in which we decide, do we continue, yes or no?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually also see it's sometimes a little bit of a balance that you need to strike, because in this proof of concept, often other questions might arise, and then you might get in this unending loop of adding new features, but you're still in the proof of concept phase. And I think this is also not always the best way of working. So you have to find a balance to say, okay, let's take it as it is right now, and first go in the next step before actually improving or building on top of the solution. And what tools do we use at Radix in general? We do indeed use Streamlit. Very often it is on a data extract which we have, and then a Streamlit dashboard on top, which might be deployed so that people can actually check it out, see if it works, and can give their feedback on it. So that's a typical way of working that we have. Okay, I think another one. I think, is there a need to first invest in a company-wide centralized data warehouse to have all relevant data at hand, or would you already start implementing on decentralized data? I don't know, Joachim, if you have an opinion on that.
Well, I'm going to ask, well, it's difficult to ask a question, but okay, let's try. Why would you first invest in centralizing the data into a data warehouse before you actually know what you're going to do with it? For me, again, focus on your value. If you don't have, or if you don't see any value of putting into a data warehouse, don't do it. And it's not because you want to do it in AI that you need to put it into a data warehouse. What we usually do is we put it into our ODS landing zone, and from there on you have a sort of playground where you can put your data. There is no SLA on it. It's just being put there without any data quality checks, etc. But it is usually enough to do a POC. So I would say keep your investment for your POC as low as possible. As soon as you see, okay, yeah, but this POC is indeed what we want and really bring the value that we want, then you can talk about investments. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, I also think I agree with that. And it also links a little bit back to the maturity levels that we discussed. It depends a little bit of where you are in your AI journey. If you're just trying in these first phases to see how AI can help you, I don't think this is the first step that you should take, as Joachim already explains. Maybe if you are really growing and it's part of your identity, then maybe you should think about how are we going to organize ourselves in an optimal way so that the data is at the right spot at the right time in the right format, and that it can be easily used. So I think it also depends there a little bit. Okay. Then we have the one for Agoro. So based on the factors that you discussed, what do you think? So that one is definitely for me. Of course, we cannot, we implemented it as Radix as an AI partner, so I cannot answer this question from a company perspective because I'm not at the company. So I do know that they worked with us because they don't have the right capabilities at their own data team. So I'm assuming that they have a problem there. But if it's really, I think they were very happy with the work that we did for them. So working with external partners, like for example, Brussels Airport Company is doing, is something that can actually help you there. Besides that, it was mainly actually, I think the biggest challenge there was having the right data, which was not one of the key things. And I think the reason for that is because Agoro is not actually making AI part of their identity. So it's not that they are struggling on an organizational level. They wanted this solution to help them have this impact for this very clear thing that they wanted to do. So I don't know if the other factors were really applicable. I'm not sure if this is answering your question, but I tried my best. Okay, I think
one remaining.
One remaining. Is Brussels Airport company using computer vision?
Yeah, well, I can answer that one indeed. Well, we've done a POC around it, but it was just before Corona struck, so it was a difficult time afterwards. So we have indeed tried it. We are now doing another POC with another company than the first one around turnarounds and trying to get some data out of that, because it is indeed a difficult one. Even with computer vision, we saw that it wasn't always easy to really get all the data points, because what you're trying to do with forecasting your departure time is looking at data points for your entire turnaround process, which is quite complex, and trying to find out, okay, this part, for example, my catering, we expect it to start then in my turnaround time and end in that time, and actually you're going to measure, okay, when did they start, when are they still going on, when we actually expected them to already stop. But it proves not that easy to do in a very accurate way. But we're still in POC phase around it.
Okay, great. I think this was the last question that we had. So I think we can conclude the webinar. Thank you everyone for joining. And as Julia is typing, the recording will be available, so you can rewatch it or share it with other people if you like.